Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Life is Strange Before the Storm. I played it on the Xbox One, it's also available on the PS4 and the PC. So first things first, this is a prequel that basically fills in the gaps and explains what was going on with Chloe before Max came back. And I've gotta say, the first thing I noticed, the credits were rolling at the beginning, and this was not developed by Dontnod, and I immediately was concerned. It was developed by a company called Deck 9. Life is Strange was developed by Dontnod, so I was a little concerned that this prequel was going to be awful, but actually the story was pretty well done. There were a few times where I felt like scenes were dragging on and they were getting a little ridiculous. There were definitely a few scenes that could have been chopped down by actually minutes, not just a little bit, but full minutes. There was one that it felt like it was going on, could have been 2 minutes shorter, would have wrapped it up, would have made that part nice and neat. That having been said, I did like playing as Chloe. It was definitely different than playing as Max because her mindset is just 100% different than Max's. And it is actually really interesting to watch the growth between her and Rachel, that friendship and much more grow between those two. I will say, and this may sound a little spoilerish if you haven't played Life is Strange, so I will warn you, soft spoiler warning here. At first I was concerned because Before the Storm only takes place over the course of 3 or 4 days at most. It's not a long span of time, but in Life is Strange, Chloe makes it sound like Rachel and her had been together for a very long time, and they give you a montage that handles that gap in time. Okay, end of spoilers here. Spoiler warning gone. You can keep listening again. The real point of the prequel is, like I said, to fill in the backstory of Chloe and to explore her and Rachel Amber, and that is kind of a big deal in Life is Strange because that is Chloe's motivation in that game. That's her initial motivation. She's trying to find out what happened to Rachel Amber, and Max is helping her. I mean, obviously in that game more comes of it. I will say that Before the Storm doesn't have some of the more interesting elements of Life is Strange, like the time control element, which was key to the story. That having been said, it was still a good story. I just kind of liked those elements in Life is Strange, and the lack of them in Before the Storm was kind of disappointing, but it makes sense. So onto the audio. Immediately, the voiceover work is very well done. There were a couple of lines that I definitely felt were discount delivered, but the writing itself was good, and the delivery for the most part was very well done by most of the voice actors. I say most, but I should say all, because like I said, the discount one was only a few, and it was 3 lines, barely even noticeable in the overall story of the game. Before the Storm has a very indie soundtrack, not unlike the first game, Life is Strange, but Before the Storm has, I'd say, a lot more female music in it. By that I mean female-fronted bands, and I liked that, honestly. I think it fit better with what was going on in the story, but the music did a really good job and it did really fit very well. I think that was exceptionally well done. Onto the gameplay mechanics. Not unlike Life is Strange, this is a much more third-person kind of story-driven game, interactive narrative, but I like that it's a lot more third-person over-the-shoulder, considering that was a complaint about a recent one that I had played. But like most interactive narratives, you explore certain areas, you can very easily miss certain things, and I unfortunately did and found out about them at the end of the chapter wrap-up. But you can also stumble upon some really interesting moments, and it's a lot of fun. I liked the way they did things. I liked the way that it felt very familiar. Considering it was a different company, they could have gone a completely different route with things, and I don't think I would have liked that at all, honestly. I will say that I did feel like there was a little less interactivity in this game. There were parts where there was a good amount, but there were also parts that definitely lacked it. Chloe's a very outspoken individual, and they kind of take away the ability to speak every line of dialogue or choose every line of dialogue. So that got a little disappointing at times. And then obviously, since the time control isn't there, they needed to give Chloe something of her own, and it's the backtalk minigame, essentially. Which is, you get dialogue options based on what the person you are speaking to has said, and certain dialogue options play off of what they have said, and basically allow you to win, and you have to get it right a few times. That having been said, that whole thing only seemed to matter in a few situations. There were a couple of times where I lost, and it really didn't prevent the story from continuing or force me to find another route to do what I was going to do. So it's interesting that it's in there, but it's far less critical than you would think it would be. As for the controls worked very well. I mean, they're very basic controls. They don't need to be anything crazy for a game like this, but they do still need to be just as responsive as in any other game, and they are, and that is important. Lastly, the graphics. This is not a super hyper-realistic looking game, and it was never meant to be. The original Life is Strange was not, and since this is a prequel, they kept that art style, and they told the story with that similar art style, similar color palette. So I'm actually very pleased with it, because I do like those artistic options that developers will take. Not every time, but it worked in this game. So to wrap this up, while I do feel that Dontnod, having not been the developer this time, probably would have done a better job overall, I'm not actually slamming this game. I think Deck 9 did very well with what they could do since they weren't the original company. So that having been said, if you enjoyed Life is Strange, pick this up. It fills in some of the gaps. It gives you Chloe's motivation. It explains that to you. If you are a fan of interactive narratives, I recommend this game. I recommend Life is Strange as well. They're great games. If you haven't played Life is Strange yet, I would say play that first and then Before the Storm. But that having been said, they're both excellent. I do actually recommend Life is Strange Before the Storm if you're a fan of interactive narratives. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me if you're into the whole indie music scene? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.